Hello, my name's Emily Knox. I'm Head of Social and Content at Tug, and thank you for joining me for a Tug tutorial. Today, I want to take you through creating and maintaining a professional social media presence. Let me share my screen, and then we will get straight into it. So if you're active on Twitter and LinkedIn, but you feel like you're not getting the most out of them that you can in a professional sense, this presentation is for you because we will be going through some best practice that will make both your presences look great and be the most effective that they can be, and also act as a bit of a guidebook for the future. So we're going to go through building your profiles, growing your audience, making the most of the platforms, looking at formats and best practice, planning out your content into the future, the rules of engagement, and planning the day, week, and month ahead. So why should business people even be on social media in the first place? I think being active in the social media sphere can have a range of benefits. The first one is you do get a return on engagement if you spend the time on social media. You can drive affinity and trust within the industry or even just within your workplace. And you can also, I suppose, just live that value of transparency. Who you are online should reflect who you are offline, so you can allow people to get to know you. Visibility and awareness are obvious pluses. You can drive awareness. You can be really accessible to people in the industry and your business on social channels like LinkedIn and Twitter, and you can build a profile. It can be good for company culture, lead by example, show who you are, demonstrate that social media is a powerful tool for your company. Social is great for keeping your finger on the pulse of industry trends, opinions, see what people are saying, and what's important that day in your industry. And also it can allow you to be an ambassador, be the human face of your company, be a thought leader, share opinions, and make yourself known. So as I said, I'm looking at Twitter and LinkedIn. Of course, they're not the only professional social channels, but they're probably the primary ones. So that's where we're going to start today. Twitter, you're probably familiar with. It's a short form news and trends network. It's got quite an open structure, so it means that content can go viral. And it's very popular with journalists and media. One of my favorite anecdotes about Twitter is that when there was an earthquake on the west coast of America, the news that it had struck reached the east coast of America quicker than the aftershocks via Twitter. So if there's something happening in the world, if there's news breaking, it's Twitter that you really want to be on. LinkedIn, of course, is the largest professional network in the world. It really is the best place for networking professionally. And you can access tailored professional news, trends, groups. So not just about your industry, but about microcosms and micro trends within your industry. You can really keep your finger on the pulse there. So just starting at the absolute basics, the building blocks of Twitter. If you haven't got your profile set up, or if your profile's set up and you think you could relook at it and do a bit better, start with your profile picture. As professionally shot as possible, even if it's not professionally shot, make sure it's a headshot, that it's well lit. I prefer color and close up, of course. We want to see your face and who you are and show a bit of personality. Your bio, you're allowed 160 characters. Use as many as you can, and don't be afraid to be personal. It does not just about your profession and your title, but maybe about some of your interests as well. Use the cover photo. Some people don't bother uploading anything there, but you can show yourself in action at a keynote speech. You can upload a logo of a side project you're doing, use it to express yourself and show a bit about who you are. You can pin a tweet. So that's a great tool to attract attention to any important news that you have. It means you're going to keep that at the very top of your profile rather than getting pushed down by all the tweets that you post subsequently. And then also, I feel like Twitter lists are quite overlooked, but you can create or follow lists of colleagues or experts, opinion leaders in your industry, which means that every day you can log in, look at your list and see what the latest is from a certain group of industry people. I think that's a great tool, which you don't often hear about. So a couple of really nice business leader Twitter profiles. Here you've got Mary Barra from GM and Brent Saunders from Allergan. You can see that they've got themselves in action on their profile pictures. They've got, they're smiling, their color pictures in their profile pictures. You get a bit of a sense of who they are. It's quite warm and welcoming. They have tidbits about their personal lives as well as their titles and professional achievements in their bio, so we can see that Brent is a basketball fan. So that's really what you want to achieve when you're setting up your Twitter profile. And don't forget Twitter lists. You can follow anything from health and medicine rock stars to social media gurus to really anything you like. There's a Twitter list or 100 for it. So make sure you keep an eye on that and curate your own as well. And then moving over to LinkedIn, it's not that different. Your profile picture, very similar rules to Twitter. You get a headline. So you can see Mary Barras here is Chairman and Chief Executive Officer at General Motors. So I would say use your company and your job title in that, because this is often what comes up in search. So it says a bit more about you and where you are now. You get a summary. The summary can be quite long. So you can sum up your achievements, your experience, your values, maybe what you hope to achieve in the future. You don't have to use the full word limit. People have short attention spans, even on LinkedIn. So as short and sweet and brief as you can. And of course, use the first person. Let's not pretend you've got your own copywriter. It's a personal medium. This is your personal profile. So write it as if you've written it. Cover photo, again, use it to show yourself in action or some aspect of your career. LinkedIn has groups, so consider joining and participating in these. There's broad industry groups, there's niche and narrow industry groups. Some are active, some are inactive. It's up to you to figure out what the most valuable ones to you are. And then featured content, it's a bit like pinned tweets. You can feature various content up right at the top of your page. So choose the most important things. It might be an achievement, it might be a white paper, it might be a piece of PR that's been written about you. Make sure they're right at the top and use that function to your advantage. So a couple of really nice business leader LinkedIn profiles I've found. Adina Friedman's from NASDAQ and Hans Vestberg is CEO at Verizon. And you can see just nice use of real estate. You can see Hans there giving a keynote presentation on his cover photo. You can see they've both got about copy filled in, and they both have featured content, which is stuff they really want to draw your attention to. So how do you, now you're set up, grow your audience on Twitter and LinkedIn? And there's a few activities which you can do, which are always going to help you acquire relevant and tailored followers. The first one is follow people on Twitter and connect to relevant accounts on LinkedIn. If you reach out, people will generally reach out back. So on Twitter, follow relevant users. You can search people. You can search who people you admire are following, for example. You can search keywords in people's bios. And if you find people that you think are putting out stuff that you're interested in, well, why not follow them? And they may well follow you back. On LinkedIn, make sure you're connected with your colleagues, your ex-colleagues, your clients, people you meet at seminars. Make sure you've got them all there and keep growing your network that way. Post consistency, consistently, I should say. So try and stick to a minimum frequency. So you might say, I'm going to post 3 times a week on Twitter and twice on LinkedIn, and just try and stick to that, because if people come to your profile and it looks dormant and dead, they're not going to follow you. Quality content. Think before you post everything. Is this insightful? Is this interesting? Is it informative? Hopefully you get all 3, but if you can at least get 1, then it's probably a piece of content worth posting. And I would say as well, have an opinion. Don't just share articles. Say something about it. What do you think about it? Is it part of a wider trend? Is it something you disagree with? If you can make people think and get across a piece of your personality, you'll probably increase your engagement. Be social. These are social networks. So tag people, share other people's posts, like their tweets, leave thoughtful comments. The more social you are, probably the more people will see your content in the end. And it might be a last resort, but if you really want to add followers quickly, particularly on Twitter, you can do it through fairly cost-effective ads. So acquisition follower ads are an option for you, but you certainly don't need to spend money with Twitter advertising in order to acquire followers. It just might take you a bit longer. Now I want to take you through a little bit of platform best practice. We'll start with Twitter. I've already touched on this a bit, but make sure you @mention other accounts to be social. But if you want to @mention someone and you want all your followers to see it, don't put the @mention at the beginning of the tweet. Put it in the middle or at the end, or put a full stop in front of the @mention is the general convention. Because if you don't do this, Twitter reads this as it's basically a reply, so only your mutual followers will see it. Retweet interesting news that you find. Again, use the retweet with comment function to put your own spin or opinion on it, and try and keep retweets to 1 in 5 of your tweets, because you don't want to just become a voice box for other people's opinions. Use images, use videos, use rich media. It is a visual platform these days. It started out as a text-based platform, but it's not anymore. The more interesting imagery you can get, the more eyes you're going to catch, and the more engagement you're going to get. It has been proven. Twitter now has a thread functionality. So if your thought or your opinion or your rant you think is going to be longer than 280 characters, you can click the little plus button and link your tweets together, and these will show as linked tweets in the feed. I think it's a really nice feature which is used a lot on the platform, so definitely worth having a look at. Share links. It's a trending news platform. People are talking about what's happening that second. If you find an interesting piece of content, share it. And use relevant hashtags. Again, trending news, there's often a hashtag attached. If you want to get outside of your social circle and into a wider conversation, hashtags are the way to do it. Of course, only use hashtags that are directly relevant to what you have to say. And then moving on to best practice on LinkedIn. Again, tag people, tag companies, tag people you want to see your content. Reach out to people, give them kudos, give them praise. It's a social network, so make sure you're doing that. Engage, log in every day and read what other people are saying and give you feedback and advice or whatever it might be. Rich media, again, this is another visual platform. It's a visual internet these days. So if you can, find an image or a video to put with your content. LinkedIn allows you to write articles, which are a little bit like blog posts. So again, if you have something that's bigger than a post, think about writing an article. It's great for thought leadership, getting across your opinion, and talking a bit more in depth about trends. LinkedIn also allows you to share documents like PowerPoints and PDFs. So if there's a piece of work you're very proud of, maybe it's a trends report, a white paper, you can share that with all your followers on the platform. And LinkedIn is a hashtag platform as well as Twitter. So look for trending conversations and make sure you're involved in all of those. Of course, don't over hashtag on either of these platforms. Just use the ones that are most relevant and most likely to be searched. Next, I want to talk about content planning. There's 4 pillars of content planning that I have here that you should follow. The first is, what are your content pillars? And I'll take you through some examples of these in the next few slides. But just consider the range of content you want to post. You're not going to just post breaking news every day, probably. You're not just going to post inspiration. But think about what the range of content that you want to post is and try and mix it up and keep it varied. Next is frequently. Do try and post consistently and have some sort of a posting schedule. As I've said, it might be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and try and log in and engage every day. Next is tone of voice. Consider your personal, verbal, and visual tone of voice and think about what is the right balance between formal and friendly, between premium and engaging. It's very personal and it's going to be personal to you. So are you going to use emojis? Is that appropriate for you and for your industry? It's something you should probably think about before you start posting so that you can ensure that your tone of voice is consistent, although really it should mostly come naturally. And then lastly, quality. Spell check, grammar check, everything you post before you post it and after it's gone out. Use high quality mobile friendly images which are correctly sized if you possibly can. Nothing looks worse than a pixelated or cut off image. And please only post reputable links in this era of fake news. The quality of the links and making sure what you're posting is accurate is so important. So here, as I say, is a few examples of content pillars from some industry leaders. The first is showing off achievement. So you can see some examples here from Brent Saunders, Mary Barra, and Adina Friedman. They're talking about things that they're proud of, things that their companies have achieved. It might be about deploying solutions to COVID-19. It might be about working to create more eco-friendly cars. It might be about making, quickly pivoting to work from home in these three cases. But I think the one thing they're doing is they're not just bragging or humble bragging, they're adding a bit of extra information which makes this interesting. It's context, it's snippets of information that you might not already have, it's shareable and remarkable. And that's where you go beyond the brag to creating something that's interesting, insightful and informative. CSR initiatives, it's not just what you're achieving for yourself or your shareholders or whoever it might be, it's what you're achieving for the community. This is just more and more important every day. So it might be about your response to COVID or things that you're doing for charity within your company. I think it's important to talk about these. Next, really important, thought leadership, opinion and trending news. So you might be sharing an article, you might be sharing a news link with your thoughts about it. You might be tapping into a trending topic like Earth Day and giving your 2 cents on that and how it relates to your industry. But of course, this is what you're here to do. You're here to show off your insights into the industry. We're living in an age of the webinar. And so if you're doing webinars, a bit like this one, if you're live streaming, anything like that, all of these digital pieces of content can be saved, they can be snipped, and they can be posted out on your social channels. So give people access, if they're not there in the moment, to have a look at these things after the fact. White papers, documents, anything that you've done that is suitable for a public audience, you can get all of this on your LinkedIn certainly, and some of it on your Twitter as well. So think about sharing that kind of stuff. If you've been covered in the news, through your PR activities, if you've been featured on radio or television, this can all go onto your social channels because we're living in a digital age where all of this can be captured. And then lastly, don't forget about personal thoughts. It's not all about work. You're a person. People have followed you because you're a person. So think about leadership, inspiration, what you do day to day, thoughts you've had about television or the news or your friends, a nice image that a co-worker has shared. That's what Ed Bastian has shared there. He's the CEO of Delta. Maybe just an image from your first virtual shareholder meeting. Give people an insight into who you are and what you're doing day to day. So just to go through the rules of engagement, when it comes to community, in your circle, make sure you're liking, replying, commenting, following back, and retweeting or sharing. And when it comes to your interests, make sure you're searching relevant hashtags to make sure you're getting the most up-to-date news, checking your Twitter lists and visiting your LinkedIn groups to keep your finger on the pulse of your industry. And in terms of dealing with positive and negative sentiment, I think this is important. If people are talking about you or your company positively, great. Search them out, find them, thank them, engage with them, follow them, and take that on board. If people are saying something negative about you or more likely your company, tread very carefully. Make sure that you're across your social media guidelines for your company. It's usually best if you're an employee not to engage at all with this. However, if you're a business leader and you have the backing of your company, potentially it can be a good way to sort out issues that people have had with your company or come to the defense of your company if allegations which are untrue are being made. I would just say tread very carefully for this one and make sure you are very aware of what the policy of your company is when representing them on social media. And then last but not least, planning your time. I think daily, try and log in every day to Twitter, LinkedIn, and read and engage and check lists and groups. Weekly, post 2 to 3 times a week on each channel. I think that's a good benchmark. If it's a bit more or a bit less, that's absolutely fine. Follow back relevant users and search brand terms. And then monthly, look back over your content and take this as a time to reflect. Check the engagement and impressions on your feed and in your analytics, and build a picture of what interests your audience, what they've responded to, and use that to form how you post in the future and inform your future content plans. So that's it from me. I really hope that you found that useful. If you have any questions, you could contact Tug Agency in the comments under this video. You can find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, pretty much everywhere. Or you can even email me at emily.knox@tugagency.com. So please get in touch. And until next time, thanks for joining me. I'll see you later.